I'm so glad you went to this direction because this was exactly where I was going with this. We're of similar minds. Nancy Pelosi, I've never seen anything like this. Maybe you have. Has just put a knife in Chuck Schumer and has done it openly. I have never seen Nancy Pelosi ever attack Chuck Schumer when she was leader of the House. She did it in this one. This is Pelosi going after Chuck for effectively capitulating and, quote, getting nothing out of the deal, as Pelosi, as Mama Bear is saying here.
It's about what comes next. I myself don't give away anything for nothing. And I think that's what happened the other day. We could have, in my view, perhaps gotten them to agree to a third way, which was a bipartisan CR for 4 weeks, in which we could have had bipartisan legislation to go forward. It's about what.
Okay, it's nice that Mama Bear would say this. Like Mama Bear is saying this, not being a Chuck Schumer spot.
Right.
I've heard Chuck Schumer's reason for this. I think the issue with Chuck Schumer is not that he capitulated. It's that he walked the plank and then capitulated, if that makes sense. Meaning he kept saying, I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to shut it down. I'm not going to accept this continuing resolution. We want 4 weeks. We want 4 weeks. And Republicans are like, okay, do it. Let's see you do it. All of us are waiting and interested in watching you shut the government down. And Chuck Schumer gets all the way out on the plank and says, I'll do it. I'll do it. Don't force me. All right, go for it. And it's like, okay.
You know,
I know I said I was going to do it.
Don't don't bluff in negotiations. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, people, but everyone assumes everyone bluffs. I mean, I've been in that situation, and people always like, you're bluffing. I'm like, then I do exactly what I said I was going to do. I always do exactly what I said I was going to do.
Otherwise, nobody takes it seriously.
Right, and it's also simpler and more direct. And then people say. And then people are like, I can't believe you did that. It's like, what do you mean? I told you I was going to do that. I told you. So, Schumer's not an idiot. And it's true that Pelosi wasn't on those calls, right? We don't know. But she's got a point. You do get and the thing is, it's not like it's not like Schumer really has a track record of really holding the Republicans' feet to the fire. And then, so he'd have some credibility if he said, listen, I'm a fighter, but this one time, this is General Custer. There's just no way, right? It's like, okay, so then we'd be able to say, okay, well, maybe the guy, he knows something we don't. But the thing is, he doesn't have that track record, so he has no credibility. He may well be right, but it doesn't matter. The Democrats just look, and I think this is just like this budget battle is just the latest thing. I mean, the problem is. We Democrats, we talked about this before, but, they had the chance to codify abortion for years. They chose not to do it. And so they just don't fight, right? I mean, which is why the minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. They don't fight. So that's part of the problem too. It's kind of like, I mean, my mom died 5 years ago. I still get her mail. They forwarded it to me. And she was an avid Democrat. And so I get all these Democratic mailers, send us money to keep fighting the Republicans. It's like, you guys never fight. Okay. Yeah. Ever. You never fight. So at a certain point, even Democrats like my mom would have to say, if she were around now, I'd ask her this, but I'd be like, come on, Mom, they never fight. Don't send them $100. There's no point. And
they're in shambles.
Yeah, they're in shambles.
The idea that Pelosi is attacking Chuck Schumer I've never seen it. Correct me. Have you ever seen that?
No, I think this is the freedom that you get when you're no longer Mama Bear, and you get to, and you're like, I'm on the loose. My husband's had his brains bashed in. I'm 80, a foot in the grave. I give no shits anymore. I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want. And I'm like, it's like Bernie the other day. Bernie's actually saying everyone should run as an independent. Don't run as a Democrat. You see that? That was a big thing.
I did not see that.
Yeah, he said
Bernie Sanders said that.
Bernie Sanders said he's like, Democrats, progressives should run as independents the way I did. Don't run in the Democratic Party. It's like,
where the hell was this Bernie Sanders 8 years ago?
I know. Well, I love me some Bernie, but he can be a puss, and so as people who I knew who worked inside his campaign, and you know who you are, would have told me repeatedly that he was very frustrating to work for because he just didn't have that like fuck you mentality. So
that is so frustrating. Like you could see it outside the campaign. So I believe everything you're telling me. And I do remember people coming back saying, yeah, he's uncomfortable going after Joe Biden. It's like you're running in a race against Joe Biden. What do you mean you're uncomfortable in going after your opponent? Or, he wasn't certain he was going to win the race with Clinton. He didn't want to damage her for Trump. And she still lost. That is so frustrating to hear. And, oh man, this DDX. Pelosi is so full of shit in that comment. And what I mean by that is the notion, like she's like, oh, if I was in leadership, I would have gotten something for this. Oh, maybe a 4-week thing.
Sure you would have.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't have. Chuck Schumer had no cards. And the reason that Republicans were standing there saying, do it, jump off the cliff, do it, we want to see it, is because they knew it. And when Chuck was
and the thing is, look, honestly, I would have, I'm usually, my default mode is, take names and kick ass. I would have advised Chuck Schumer to do exactly what he did. I would have said, like,
really, walk the plank.
Because I would have said, don't threaten in the first place, right? Yeah. Don't bluff. The bluffing's bad, but and I love poker. It's my favorite game. Don't bluff. But the thing is, I think he should have. I think he did exactly the right thing, because if he didn't, and then all the things we talked about, like, the Pell Grants not getting approved, people calling Social Security and not getting anyone on the phone, going all the cute park rangers with their cute little Smokey Bear hats are all unemployed and the park is closed. All that shit, the Republicans would be able to say, well, that's on you. You guys shut down the government. Whereas now it's still on Doge, it's still on Trump, it's still on Musk. It's on them, no matter. So it would have muddied a shutdown in the middle of Doge would have muddied the waters. I think a shutdown in general would not be a bad idea. If the Doge thing wasn't happening, I'd be like, go for it. But it is. So you gotta let that play out.
And by the way, that was his argument. We would get blamed. There was no way to reopen the government. He's like, how, if they just say, okay, we call your bluff and you shut it down, how do you reopen it? That was one of the other questions he had. How do you reopen the government?
And also he did point out something that I hadn't thought about, Schumer, that in a shutdown scenario, it's not like the government completely goes away, that it gives the executive even more prerogatives over what things are considered vital functions and what are not. It's like Doge on acid. So, Doge on steroids, whatever metaphor you want. So that I could see, again, that's something, that would it would be bad. I think he made a smart move. Sometimes a smart move sucks, but
it's the threat that's the issue.
You shouldn't have threatened. Don't threaten unless you're willing to deliver. It's sort of like
the last question. Well, the last conversation has to do with, okay, if it's not Chuck Schumer, that's the leader of the party. Mama Bear has no fucks to give now. She's out of power.
It's not Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah, right. Well, I would prefer Mama Bear back.
Oh.
Jeffries is a horrible arbiter for the party. He is horrible. He has no charisma. Right. He's boring. He's like a flat piece of toast.
Yeah. It's actually kind of shocking. I expected more out of him.
Did you?
Well,
I don't know what I expected out of him, but not this.
I mean, he was sold to us as something that apparently he's not, which is, this guy's a youthful, energetic, firebrand. It's like, no.
He's none of those things. No. I've come to the consensus or the conclusion that what liberals want is a world where liberals are awesome. That is not the world they're living in, though. And because they're not living in that world, they're looking for people thinking, we need to find somebody who's like us, but catches fire. And it's like, dude, maybe it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
It's like we want. It's like they want someone who's like them, but is likable. And the thing is, people like them are not likable, and people who are likable, they won't like.
They don't like. Yeah. Right. I've had a conversation with a liberal, and I remember I pointed out, hey, Bernie was the energy of the party. I don't like him. Okay, then you lose. And this goes back to the Chris Matthews thing where he's like, if Sanders takes it, he's going to take the part of a generation. Maybe it's better for Trump to win. Now, Chris Matthews is opining openly. We need somebody to speak for us who's on the outside. Okay, Sanders was on the outside. He was an independent. And even if he was running in the political race, all of you saw him as an outsider. And yet,
look, even if you take the politicians out of it, right? Look also at the media landscape, right? Look at us here, on the outside looking in, right? I mean, like if we were, just look at the conservative media scape, like the way they support their right-wing voices, people like, Tucker Carlson and Ann Coulter and people like that, where all the ideas come from and all the dynamism comes from on the right? It comes from right of the Republican Party. Well, all the dynamism on the left comes from outside of the Democratic Party, but they freeze us out, right? Like Bernie Sanders is the embodiment of like left of the Democratic. Truth is, he's just George McGovern or Hubert Humphrey, but things have moved so far to the right. So like they don't want to win. Their ideology won't allow it, and they've frozen us out. I mean, think about the way the Republicans are so adaptable, right? They have no superdelegates to put their thumbs on the scale during their primaries for the presidency. And when they get an insurgent right winger like Donald Trump or Arnold Schwarzenegger in the special election to replace Gray Davis in California, those are, their first reaction of the party establishment was like, ew, like Trump and Schwarzenegger are icky. We don't like them at all. But then they read poll numbers and they're like, well, the people want this. I mean, who knows why, but they do. All right, let them have it.
Yep.
The Democrats don't do that. Democrats are like, well, the people want Bernie. That's like, fuck them. It's like, well, okay, well, then you lose because it's like, this is about votes, right? That's what it is.
They want a magical world. It's like, we don't understand why this thing doesn't catch fire. I compared it to people wanting like YouTube channels. Like you have, I think, if this fact is correct, it's like 95% of channels are under 1,000 subs. That blew me away. I had no idea that it was like that.
I believe
you may
that.
have a channel who believes in fish, wants to talk about fish. That's the only thing they want to deal with is fish. And they think more people should know about fish. And that channel has 2 subs. It's mama and it's dad watching the kid talk about fish. It may not catch fire because nobody gives a shit about fish in that way.
Right.
I'm saying that that's the same way with liberals, right? Just because you want it to catch fire doesn't mean it will. And it may take something else. You may have to be something else. You may have to do something else in order to make that work in a way that in their minds, it's not part of the process. For example.
Exactly. You can't make people sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead. For example, sorry.
No, keep going.
No, I was just going to say, like, for example, so I used to work for this Japanese bank, and my boss, Japanese guy, he came to me and he's like, I want to start a business. Like, none of my colleagues, these executives who all work in New York, they're all Japanese. They can't speak English for shit. It's fucking up their business. They should all be tutored and learn English. I want to start a business, a tutoring agency. Okay, so long story short, I helped him do this on the side, right? We started a business. Turns out, he was right. Japanese executives of the late into 1980s in New York, their English was execrable. It fucked up their business. It ruined their lives. But they didn't think that their English sucked or that it mattered. So the business failed because, it's kind of like they had a need. They just didn't care. And so it's just like that. It's like you can want something to be true. I mean, I thought, people are poor in this country. We'll have, when I was 20, I was like, there's going to be a communist revolution. Well, no, there won't, unfortunately, at least not yet, because the conditions aren't right. As, Karl Marx, if he could come back from the grave, be like, Ted, I told you that. I wrote that. The conditions have to be right. It's like, so, that's, and that's the truth, right? I mean, it's like that's a really hard part of politics is stop wishing for the way you wish things were and start accepting the way and work with the way things are. And the Democrats are in a total state of denial. That's the part. They haven't changed a thing. They don't even, never mind like, okay, well, what should we do next? they haven't even really accepted, we really fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, and they have really fucked up. They only lost by a few points in that election, right? And that's what they're going to say. But the thing is, demographics have been moving in their favor for decades. Remember the emerging Democratic majority and all that from 1992? I think that book came out. It's like, I mean, with all the way immigration has worked out, the way that the demographics of like how young voters are working out, Republicans should be an obsolete party. They should basically be like the farmer labor party, where they're only strong in like a couple of states. It's like they should be done.
But see, I think that book is part of the reason they're as bad as they are. I really do. Because I think they internalize this idea that we have a mathematical majority locked in because of demographic results.
Destiny.
And because we have a mathematical majority locked in into demographic results, we don't have to do anything. We just need to exist. And the very act of just being is enough for us to win because of demographics. Okay, that's not true.
Obviously.
The idea that a Republican...
Plainly not true.
The idea that a Republican was able to win the popular vote is astonishing. And they haven't registered that. They are still cobbling it together. Well, it's not too bad. It's not that bad. It's only a few million votes. Dude, there's like 7 million different votes between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Like just millions of people that just said, screw it, I'm not showing up. And something else I want to point out. This. Bernie Sanders got 15,000 people to show up in a non-election year.
Mm-hmm.
15,000 people.
Yeah.
That number is mind-blowing.
Those are bigger than Trump rallies.
Yeah.
Not taking anything away from Trump. I'm just saying.
But they would look at that and blow it off. This is a non-election year. He's not running for president, as far as I know. And yet, 15,000 people are coming out just to hear him speak.
No, he's not running again, ever.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. And it tells you that there's a lot of... Look, if there were... It's so frustrating. You and I both know that if suddenly there were, it's like if George Soros was really the person that like right-wing media says he was, and he was like, so there's a guy like that who's suddenly financing and standing up a true left-wing progressive political party as an alternative to the Democratic Party that's not like full of, star fuckery like so many of those kind of movements tend to be, but it's like really truly an ideological based movement. And people felt, they got that sort of sense like, oh, if I vote for these guys, they might win some elections. Like if you had that sense, a Democratic Party would bleed out. I mean, it's like there would be, I'm not saying no one, there's still the corporatists and the centrists, but a lot of those centrists, they think they're centrists merely because they think there's no other way to win. It's not in their hearts. I mean, I have to think that even if you're like a standard centrist, corporatist, liberal Democrat, but you still care about like LGBT issues and the environment and all these traditional liberal values, that like if you had an alternative that actually was viable and stood up for those values in a way that the Democrats don't, a lot of those people would move over as well. It wouldn't just be a bunch of hardcore commies like me. So, it would be, it would be a major party. But the problem is, it's kind of like this. It's like the penguin, the nature specials where you see all the penguins are like all massed on the cliff. And it's like they look down and it's fucking cold in that water, and even colder than where they're standing. And you can see the sharks swimming around like, come on in, boys. And then one penguin either tumbles in accidentally or dives in. And then they're like, okay, fuck it, let's all go. And they all go. Yeah, because it's like there's safety in numbers, right? Like the odds of me personally as a penguin being killed by a shark are low because there's millions of my buddies and there's only 6 sharks. So like, that's the whole thing. There's safety in numbers. The left doesn't have any numbers at all. There would be safety in numbers, but the point is, how do you get there? That's the challenge. And it's like, you have to start with grassroots organizing from the ground up. You've got to get some school board members elected and some county assemblymen and all those people. And Democrats are like, well, liberals are like, well, we don't, but beside that, it's like, there is no beside that. That's what you got to do,
Or do you need somebody from the top down? Like, do you need an anchor for that party?
That can work too. But again, like a Ross Perot, but for the left, right?
Right.
Bernie could have been that person if he had
Yes.
the money. If he had
And
the
that
money.
is so frustrating.
Ross had the money. Ross had the money.
Yes. Well, so did Sanders. Sanders was making more than Clinton in that primary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like he was a funding juggernaut in the way that he was bringing in money. And in fact, Obama's model, if you remember, they started to make their models more like Sanders, or tried to, in the way they were operating. He did not want, and I would wager to you, even when he's saying people should run for independence, he would say, in a Democratic state where it's close, you should run and vote Democrat. I would wager to you that he's going to say these 15,000 people that showed up need to go and vote Democrat, which is not helpful. If you tell these people, we are going to start something different, I don't care if it bleeds away support from Democrats. I don't care if they lose. They've already been losing.
No, that's the point, is to bleed votes from Democrats.
Yes.
That's what leverage is.
But that's not what he uses, nor is that what he does. And that is the most. Sanders would have had 20 million people that would have bled on the flag and crawled over hot glass to vote for him. Mm-hmm. And he told those people to go vote for Clinton.
Now imagine also if he was the standard bearer of a new political party. Let's say we call it the New Progressive Party, just for the sake of argument, right? It's like, so the NPP, like, let's say, okay, Bernie doesn't lie to you. He says, okay, I'm not going to be your next president. But you come out of the election and there's like, there's like a new congresswoman from Georgia who got elected, and from the NPP. There's 6 California assemblymen are now NPP members. You'd be like, oh, I see this moving in the right direction. I think that's how you build momentum. People they need hope. And that's the thing. That's one of the things that pissed me off so much about Obama's campaign, was those fucking Shepherd Ferry posters, hope and change. It's like, when you build people's hope, literally with like a Soviet style propaganda poster, and then you dash it on the rocks, that's like, that's brutal. It's like, that's something that like a Republican, like Karl Rove can't even dream of doing that much damage to the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Ted, you're absolutely right. One last question. Is AOC the new face of the party? And does it work for her?
I think the answer is not necessarily no, but I think she's got some work to do. She's not. I find her irritating as hell these days. And there's something, and I don't know if this is even true. I feel like her voice has changed. Is that even possible?
Wait. I'm glad you say that. I'm glad you said it. And so it's not just me. I felt like, okay, I'm being a guy. And in being a guy, I don't want to say that.
I'm old. I'll do that.
I feel like I have real.
I go there.
Thank you for saying it. I just, I'm not alone. This is a speech she gave recently at the Fight the Oligarchy, the thing that they're doing now. This is, I think, what you're referring to.
So let me share with you exactly what I mean. Because when they like to call us radical, and what they like to call me as radical, I believe is common sense. I believe that when a person gets sick, they shouldn't go bankrupt in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Common sense. I believe that a minimum wage should cover the minimum cost to live. Common sense.
Now, what she's saying is right. At least I think what she's saying is right.
Of course.
It's a little irritating.
Yeah,
I feel like the guy for saying that.
She seems less authentic than she used to.
Yes,
I think her years in the Beltway have not done her any good. I think when she was going door to door to in that insurgent campaign against a sitting Democrat in Queens, she was still the former bartender. People use that to insult her. I say that as a compliment. And she was a person of the people. And now she's trying to sound like Bernie, right? Like common sense with the hand gestures and everything. It's not authentic. That's not who she is. She's a Latina chick from the Bronx. It's like, be the Latina chick from the Bronx. It's like, be real. I mean, imagine if, you or, were running for office or just giving a speech like that. Be Jamal. Just be, because there's no other person who's Jamal. Only you can be Jamal. And it's like,
and people know.
And they know, it's like, and TV is the biggest bullshit detector in the world. And TV and the internet, video is like, you can't fake that. And also the slow talking, the common sense. It's like, oh my God, I'm not stupid. Okay. I fucking heard you. Speed it up here. Okay. I want to hear the end of your speech before I die of old age. I mean, it's just like, she's irritating. She reminds me also of Hillary, that kind of delivery, that really? Cadence. And and screaming into the mic. Don't shout into the mic. That's why it's a mic, because it does the shouting for you.
But is that us being guys? I can't tell. I can't tell if it.
Guys don't do that. And there's lots of women who don't do it.
That's precisely
Elizabeth Warren doesn't do it. I mean, she doesn't have a pretty voice, but she doesn't yell into the mic.
Yeah, maybe. I guess I feel like I can't tell if it's all right. We feel this way because we're men.
Well, we are half the electorate, right? So she has to win those people.
That's true. That is true.
I think the thing is, okay, here's the thing. Let's just say AOC runs for president, and she could in 2028.
Or she may take Chuck Schumer's spot.
Or 2032 or whatever. Yeah. But the point is, okay, what has she accomplished? Nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, what does she have to point to? Oh, I was young and smart. That's it? You're going to have to do better than that. It's like, and I don't mean she has to say, like, oh, I passed the Sewage Retrieval Act of 2000. I don't mean that. But it's like, you got to be able to point to something.
Ted, man, I always appreciate you joining me. I really do. Ted Rall, a political cartoonist, syndicated columnist. He is a host of the TMI show, Too Much Information with Manila Chan. She is fantastic. Definitely check them out. They start at 10 a.m. Jake, I got you late today. I'm sorry. Ted,
that's all right. Let you go. Thank you.
You have a fantastic show, man.
You too. All right. Have a great weekend, Jamal. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, man. Have a good one. All right. Shout out to Ted Rall. Always appreciate him joining me on the show. I think he's right. I want to go to chat before I close. Mr. Ripley, my 20-1 dark horse is Rashida Tlaib as the Democratic candidate in 2028. I really dig her. Do you? I loved her aggressiveness on the issue of Gaza. I mean, obviously she's part Palestinian, so that makes sense. It is deeply unfortunate that her party did not back her on that. Like her sitting there with a sign by herself, it's one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen. And I feel some kind of way that her own political coalition effectively abandoned her to do that by herself. Look, my ire towards Democrats running the gambit of things, that is one of them. I just remember her sitting there with that sign. And it's like, your party has abandoned you on this. I mean, I fully believe that part of the reason they got rid of those people on MSNBC, Democratic media, was because of their support for Palestine. And if you remember, even at the Democratic convention, they wouldn't even let a Palestinian speak. And so Tlaib was a lone voice in the wilderness on that issue. And good on her for doing it. More fish content, please. RJ Ramrod. There will be no fish content, Ramrod. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, RJ. I am all out of fish content. All right. I'm going to close this. I was trying to get Scott on. He hit me back. I'll see if I can get him on later today. I definitely want to cover what is taking place in Ukraine. Scott is typically my guy for doing so. Look, you all have a phenomenal weekend. You will not see me on Monday. You will see me on Tuesday. We'll be back to a typical show. I will be in a different dwelling, but we will be here together nonetheless. You all have a fantastic day and have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you guys next week. Jamal Thomas Morning Show 119, signing off. Have a good one all.